If you're watching this video, then the chances are you're probably struggling with your spare game. We've all been there, but don't worry, this is the video that you need to get you out of your sparing slump and to start making your spares much more consistently. Because I'm sure there are a few mistakes that you're making when you're approaching your spares that we can address and fix in this video. Now, I'll start off with what I think will be the biggest issue for many, and that is that you're trying to hook at all your spares. When we look at the thumbnail of this video, you would have seen a professional, EJ Tackett, on the left hand side doing it the right way, and on the right side in comparison, a league bowler sparing the 7-pin in the wrong way. Now, I use the term right or wrong, and it's probably not the best term because at the end of the day, if you're making the spares, that's all that matters. There is no real right or wrong way. I suppose what I should say is optimal and not so optimal. And in my opinion, the most optimal way to shoot your spares is to shoot them straight. A lot of players who play leagues, maybe some tournaments, on patterns that aren't too difficult, they can generally get away with hooking the ball at all of their spares. When they start to get on tougher conditions, sports shots, that's when their spare game can unravel, and that is what can keep you afloat in many situations on patterns that are tougher or lanes that are playing more difficult. If you're going to compete on these kind of shots, you need to have a solid spare game that you can rely on in these kind of situations when the strikes aren't always flowing. And by hooking the ball at your spares on difficult lanes, you're just opening yourself up for a lot of trouble, and that's what a lot of bowlers find. They might get so used to seeing their ball hook all the way across the lane from the first arrow on, when they're shooting a 7-pin, if they're right-handed, on a house shot, but then they go to a sports shot and suddenly their ball just doesn't hook at all. So they make an adjustment, they come a little bit inside, and then the ball shoots off and misses it completely to the left. And they're left scratching their heads. Well, it's not a house shot. You have to attack it differently, and there's going to be times when if you're playing on a flatter pattern, you're not going to get that consistency across the lane. So the solution is to bowl your spares as straight as possible. And there is a reason why the pros pretty much all do this, and it's simply because it takes the lane out of play completely. If you're using a plastic ball and you're throwing it straight every time, then it actually, in theory, doesn't matter what lane you're bowling on, what type of condition, it is the same. The only thing that affects it is how you throw it, whether you hit your target, whether you actually throw it straight, or if you accidentally, put some hook on it. But if you can throw it dead straight every time, then in theory, and hit your mark every time, then the theory is you will be far, far more consistent with your spares. Now, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into why hooking the ball at spares isn't ideal. But just before I do, I want to let you all know about something new that I've started. I did make an announcement about this a few weeks ago, but haven't had a chance to properly launch it and make a video about it. And I have decided to start offering online coaching sessions. And I want to talk just quickly about why I'm doing this. Now, as I'm sure many of you know, I'm from the UK. I am a registered coach here, but to be honest, it's not so much to me about qualifications. It really is about knowledge, but also how you apply that knowledge, and that is key. And that's a mistake a lot of coaches make. And I feel like there's a lot of bowlers watching now who probably might be struggling to find a coach because they go to somebody who has outstanding technical knowledge, but they do everything by the book. And they try and teach that to you, but you find that it just doesn't fit your game. And that is the problem with the textbook sometimes. And there are coaches who refuse to go outside of that. So if you have a player, for example, who has a swing that goes behind their back, but they're physically not able to swing the ball straight for whatever reason, maybe their body won't allow them to, well, the coach will continue to try and get them to do it by the book, even though they can't. Whereas my philosophy is that you have to work with what you have, and that it doesn't have to be textbook, it just has to work for you and get you the results that you're looking for. It's no good trying to force somebody to do something by the book if they're not able to do that for whatever reason. And unfortunately, a lot of coaches don't have that sort of flexibility. So what you'll get with me is really just an open and honest and frank assessment of your game, but also advice that is tailored so that it can actually be impactful for you. And to come up with a plan, a game plan for you that you can implement that sticks to your strengths. Not to brag, but I think I do have a very good eye for seeing what can be improved in somebody's game, and it often doesn't have to be major changes. It can be the small things that perhaps others miss that can make the world of difference. So one thing I'm offering is a 90-minute session where you send me videos of you bowling, and then we sit together and break it all down, and I will give you all of my insight into how you can build on what you've already got to help to start to get you to the next level. The other thing I'm offering is, again, 90-minute sessions where we dive deep into the mental game. If you've seen my videos before, you would have got a little bit of a taste about my kind of insights and knowledge into the mental game. It's something I've had to work extremely hard on myself, and I feel I could bring a lot of insight and a lot of help to people who might be struggling with their mental game. So I am currently running a special offer. It was a New Year special offer, but I've decided to extend it. So that is still available. I mean, look, some might say it's cheap. Some might say it's expensive. I think it is reasonably priced given on what I can provide. But my aim is not to try and take your money and just use this as a cash grab. I'm doing this because I personally feel that I can help. I personally feel that I can make a difference to your game. And if I can't, if you come to me and say, do you know what, that session was terrible, I didn't learn a single thing, do you know what, I won't even charge you. I'll just waive the fee for the session. I'm not going to charge somebody if they really didn't get a single thing out of it. For me, my goal is to help you and your bowling, whether it be your physical game or your mental game. So if that does sound of interest to you, I will leave a link below in the description so you can find out more details there and book a time if you would like to have a chat with me about your physical or mental game. But let's go back on to spare shooting. Now let's look at when bowlers decide to hook at their spares. There's a few reasons why it's a bad idea, and the main one is that they don't have a consistent system. I've spoken about this in another video recently about spare shooting, where you would be very surprised how many bowlers don't really have a plan when they're shooting their spares. They kind of just get up and just throw their reactive ball down there and hope for the best. They don't have any real kind of system. Now, I spoke about the 369 system. I'm sure many of you have heard of that. It's a very simple system that essentially tells you how many boards you need to move depending on which area, which pin you're going for. So you would either move 3, 6 or 9 boards depending on which pin. And even a simple system like that can increase your spare percentage massively if you're hooking at the spares. But so many bowlers don't use any kind of system, and that is just going to exacerbate the problem when you go off of a house shot and you go onto something more challenging. Then you'll find, because you don't have any system, you've got no real idea. It just becomes a bit of a guessing game and a bit of a lottery about whether you're going to make your spares, especially with multi-pin conversions. The other issue is in the mental side. So many bowlers, they miss a spare and that's it. They're almost done. You know, just missing that, whether it's a 10 pin, whether it's a particular pin that they struggle with. As soon as they miss one, that's it. Their whole game unravels. It affects their next shot, and it reaffirms the belief that they can't hit certain pins or make certain spares. But a lot of that problem comes from false beliefs, because they don't remember the times when they can make that particular spare. But it's not surprising sometimes that players miss certain spares because often they're trying to attack it in the wrong way. They're trying to go for a 10 pin and actually trying to hook it using a reactive ball. They're not even trying to flatten out their hand. So I said in the previous video, I said when it comes to spares, the best way, if you're struggling and you're getting into this mindset of, you know, I always miss these spares, and you start overthinking it, well, how am I going to get this? The best way is to take away all of that overthinking and to simply pick up the ball and go. It's something I've started to do, and I've personally seen my spares, particularly with the 7 pins. I'm a left-hander. My 7 pin spare percentage has increased hugely just by picking up the ball and literally putting my thumb in and going. Before, when I was missing them a lot, I was taking way too much time. I was just taking probably about 10 seconds on the approach to really kind of get myself set, really try and calm myself down, but it actually was just making it more tense because you're making it a bigger deal than it needs to be. You need to be in the mindset of no fear, no panic, just confidence, just calm. And that is easier said than done when you're missing it. But what you need to do in a practice session is don't worry about whether you're going to hit it or not, but just try and get up on the approach and go and see what happens. See how it makes you feel, see if you're actually getting it more in the right direction consistently. And I think you'll find you will when you take the thought out of it and you just let your body do the work, because your body knows how to make a 10-pin. You know that. You have the physical skill to do that. What's stopping it is the mind. The mind is overthinking. It's putting all these obstacles and fears and doubts, which then affect your physical performance. So by taking the mind out of it, you're not actually giving the mind any opportunity to interfere. And then what that allows you to do is you start making them more, you get more confidence, and then you start to work through those feelings of, fear, doubt, etc. And you start to understand why they're there, and you start to understand that actually they aren't even true. And it is interesting when you watch the pros, go and watch PBA telecasts from the last 15-20 years. You will see it on the spares. They don't take a lot of time. They really don't. They just it's automatic. They pick up their ball, they throw it straight at the pin and move on. And yes, of course, sometimes they're going to miss spares, miss single pins. But on the whole, when you watch them, they go into that autopilot mode. And I think by not giving yourself time to think, by not giving yourself a very long setup, you do put yourself in autopilot mode. So I think that is a key part. And another mistake that I want to mention as well about players who do try and throw straight at the spares, they tend to get very quick. They tend to try and overthrow it. They're very focused on throwing it straight, but they just seem to want to fire the ball down the lane as quick as possible. And that obviously brings a lot of problems. You just lose accuracy. At the end of the day, if you're bowling a ball completely straight, then you don't need a lot of speed because it's going to go straight. You need to be accurate. You need to hit your mark and come out of the ball in the right way. So speed is not necessary. You don't need high speed. But I think it's something that bowlers get in their head when they're trying to throw it straight. They just want to overthrow it. They want to get it down the lane as quickly as possible. So try and remember to really slow down and you will definitely become far more accurate. So let's do a little bit of a summary here. Firstly, like I said, there is a reason why the majority of the pros throw straight at spares. It's because it gives you consistency, it takes the lane out of play, and once you master how to do it, your spare percentage will increase. The second point, if you are going to continue to try and hook at your spares, then please try and work out a system. Doesn't have to be the 369, but you need to have some kind of system that works for you, that gives you some sort of consistency. But even then, I would say you should really practice throwing straight at your spares so you've got that to fall back on, because there's some tournaments when things are just not going to go your way with the spares and you need to have your spare game firing. And even if throwing it straight is not your preferred way of going about it, have it in your back pocket in case you need it, because do you know what? There might come a time when you're forced into throwing straight at your spares. And if you can do it, if you've got some confidence, even though you might not enjoy it or like it or whatever, if you practiced it, that could be a lifeline for you. And then when it comes to the mental game, like I said, analyze why these emotions are coming up, like fear or anxiety, or look at the beliefs that are coming into your head as well, like, oh, I always miss the 10-pin, I always do this, I always hook it too much or whatever. And start to really sit with those, analyze those, and think about whether they're actually true or not, or whether they are false beliefs that you have started to build over time. And then to combat that, try and take your mind out of play and just go on autopilot, pick up the ball and just go for your spares and remove all thoughts. Hopefully, if you follow some of these tips, you will notice a big difference in your spare shooting. But the one I can stress mainly is the mental side, because so many players have mental blocks when it comes to spares. And to be honest, they've actually talked themselves into missing the spare before they've even picked up the ball. So I hope this will be of use to you. And like I said, if you want to discuss this in more detail and have a full session with me, then make sure to check out the link in the description. And if you'd like me to do another video on spare shooting, maybe diving into some other aspects, or if there's anything else, maybe some parts of the mental game you'd like me to do a video on, then please let me know your suggestions in the comment section below. If you have enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button below. Well, that is going to do it from me for today, and as always, thank you bowling fans, and see you all next time.